Hello and welcome to Basic to Bold podcast. I'm your host, Jen Bjarnson. So today we are going to talk about, I'm just going to dive right in because I have been wanting to talk about this concept for a minute, to be honest with you. It's been a while, but I just couldn't figure it out in my head. I couldn't get exactly how to present it. And then I was with my own coach, my own mentor, and just put things perfectly. So before we dive in, I want to ask you just if this podcast helps you in any way, you find value in it, please share it. Please, send it to a friend that might be struggling and maybe this could add value to their life. So today I want to dive in with the concept of social contracts. All right, so what are social contracts? What are they? How, what's the point? Where would we use these? Because I think we think of contracts as very much lawyers and business and how that all works. It's not what I'm talking about. I am talking about we have negative, not even negative all the time, but we're going to talk about negative. But more thought patterns, more, not even just, it begins with a thought, but patterns in your life that dictate how you choose to do things. So, for instance, we live in a society where we have a lot of social contracts that actually support and help society. For instance, we all agree that we're not going to hurt each other. We all agree that we don't get to do that. Just because you're affected in a way doesn't mean you get to put harm towards me. We all agree with that, right? The majority, 99% of us. At the same time, there are other contracts that aren't necessarily beneficial to society. It's not beneficial or not, they're not negative or positive. They just kind of are what they are. Here in America, where I live, we say, "How is your day?" You automatically say, "I'm fine, thanks. How was yours? How was your day?" Typically, we kind of have this social contract. I don't know about you, but if I say, "Oh, how are you doing?" or "How's it going? How's your day?" and the person doesn't say, "Fine, how's yours?" or "Great, how are you doing?" If it's anything other than that short, quick answer, and you get this whole spiel about oh, and their sister's doing this, and this is what's going, it's very off-putting. Why? Because we all have kind of a social contract that you just give an automatic response. You just give the response, "I'm fine." I mean, you could not be fine. You could be absolutely having the worst day, but we kind of have this social contract that everybody just kind of automatically agrees, "Oh, I'm fine. Fine, thanks. How are you?" And that's just kind of it. And the other person responds with, "Great, how are you?" or "I'm fine." And so that's kind of a social contract that I'm talking about. The interesting thing is we have these all over the place. We have them not just with other people and not just in society, but we have them with ourselves. We have them in our family. So with ourselves, I think one of the ones that really comes to mind first is we have a contract that when you hit a certain age, your back will hurt, your hair will go gray, you start losing your eyesight. All of these things happen at a certain age, and it just goes downhill from there. And as a society, as a whole, the majority of people wholeheartedly believe that within themselves. And they don't question it. No, very few people question it. That you hit a certain age, you are going to have your back hurt. It's going to hurt when you wake up in the morning. And the interesting thing is, if you don't subscribe to that, you are kind of the weird one. You're kind of the person who's just well, what do you mean? Of course that's what happens. And if you question it, it's very much, well, why? Why does that have to happen? So this is kind of an example of a contract that you have within yourself as an individual. Then you have contracts with other people. I'm sure there is somebody in your family that, we just know Aunt Susan, she gets to just say whatever she wants to say and nobody questions it and nobody confronts her and nobody sets boundaries. Why? Oh, that's just Aunt Susan. You know, Mom talks about my weight and tells me that I should be eating this or not eating that, or that I'm gaining weight or losing weight. And we don't question it. Why? Because that's just Mom. She's just going to say it. And I don't have a say in that. So we have these contracts that between other people, some of them we have set the contract, and that's what we have said as this is truth and it never changes and it's set in stone. And then other contracts are, we just heard from other people and we didn't question it. We didn't question why nobody, stood up, why nobody didn't stand up to Aunt Susan. Why didn't somebody say, hey, Aunt Susan, you're rude. Maybe you should shut your trap, right? No, because that's just Aunt Susan. And so we have these contracts, and again, not all of them are bad, but I really want to start taking a look at, or I want you to take a look at yourself. And I really want you to dive deep into these contracts and these patterns that we all have. Like I've known this concept for a while. Maybe I didn't name it contracts or social contracts, but I've had this thought process for a while, and I thoroughly enjoy when I find another contract or another pattern or another habit or another belief, because I think, oh my gosh, there's another one. And I'm like, oh, I'm doing so good. And then all of a sudden something happens and life throws a curveball at you, right? And instead of handling it so well and so perfectly, I'm just like, and it's all chaos. And then I find when I have time to reflect, I find myself going, oh, yeah, I have a belief, or I have an expectation, or I had a contract that nobody else knew, but I believed it. Okay, so how do we recognize these things? So first of all, how do you recognize, now that we've kind of discussed what a social contract is, or a contract, or a pattern, these habits that we have, how do we kind of identify them? One of the best ways is through emotion. So I love the concept of jealousy. And here's why. Because it 100% tells you as a person what you want, but you think you can't have. That's what jealousy is. Jealousy is the fact that you look at somebody and you think, I want that relationship. I want that success. I want her outfit. I want that car. I want whatever, fill in the blank. I want that I see another person having. And if you thought you could have it, here's what you would think. You would look at that person and go, oh, I want that outfit. I'm going to go get it. And if I don't have the money to get it, I'm going to figure out a way for it to get that money to get that outfit. I want that relationship. I found a person who I really, that is the relationship I want. And if you weren't jealous, you would look at that person and go, okay, that's the kind of relationship I want. Check. I need a guy. I need a person. I need an individual who's going to check those boxes. What are they doing? How are they reacting? Right? Like you would study it almost like you're diving in. What does that person have? How did they get it? What did they do? How are they behaving? How are they acting towards each other? How do they talk to each other? Because that's a relationship I want. But jealousy and anger and looking at somebody is the fact that you go, okay, they have that relationship that I want. That's the relationship I want. And then the thought is, but I'll never get it. I could never have that. I'm never going to find somebody to love me like that. I'm never going to get that. I'm not good enough. And the reality is that's when the anger comes in and the irritation and the frustration, because you truly believe that you'll never get it. It's not that other person has it. It's that you don't think you're ever going to get it. And then we look at that person and we go, well, why does she get it? She's not that pretty. Why is that person with her? Okay. Their success. They're really not even that smart. Have you seen some of the choices that they make? How are they that successful? And we're mad and we're upset, not because the person has it, but because we don't think we're gonna ever get it. We don't think we deserve it. We don't think it's possible. We think it's gonna happen to other people, but not us. But I love this because if you can understand the fact that you have created a contract, you truly do not believe in the heart of heart, in the depths of your soul, that you're ever going to get that thing that you want. And so now you're mad and you're irritated and you're looking at that person. When the reality is, if you can start to self-reflect and go, what is it about that person that I want? And then start dissecting, why do I think I can't have it? Why do I think I'm not going to get that relationship? Like, why couldn't I find somebody that talks nice to me? Why could I never have the health that other people have? I love this one. I love the health question because this is something so fascinating to me, because most people will immediately go to diet, exercise, and genetics. And I don't really want to go down the rabbit hole too much, but I am genuinely fascinated with the mind and how much it can create in the body. In fact, this reminds me. I had a client who had migraines, and I won't go too much into it, but basically she created migraines in her mind because there was a lot of chaos, and when she got sick or created a migraine in her head, it was way better than the chaos and the stress that was happening in her life. And so the migraine allowed her to get away from the chaos and the stress. And now she doesn't get migraines anymore because she's able to recognize if she starts on the path of getting a migraine, right? Like if you're a person who's ever had migraines, you know, right? Like there's a pathway to the migraine where you're like, I think I'm starting one. If that happens, she immediately recognizes, she's like, okay, something feels chaotic here, and I feel like I can't handle the chaos. And I can't handle the chaos. So what's going on? What's happening? So being introspective about these patterns and these contracts within yourself is so fascinating, because we have so many that we wholeheartedly believe. We just believe them. We believe that at a certain age, we're going to now have to read the menu with bifocals. We believe at a certain age that it's going to hurt getting out of bed. At the same time, how many people, maybe not a lot, but how many people do you know who have great eyesight at 70 years old? How many people do you know have amazing health at like 80, 90 years old? How many people do you know or have heard of, they're like the 90-year-old guy who's like lifting weights and surfing? So if they can do it, why is it the absolute norm that we just have to go to going downhill at a certain age? And immediately it's fascinating that people automatically go to, well, it's genetics, well, it's their diet, well, it's this, well, it's that, as if they can't have it, as if that's not a possibility to them. So I really want you to start introspectively looking at your emotions, and not all just, I know I really touched on jealousy and hatred towards people. It's not so much focusing on that, but notice when emotion arises, right? Like notice when things pop up. And I know in the heightened emotional state, it's really hard to be like, wow, I'm really emotionally heightened here. What is going on? I get it. It's possible, because I know I've done it many times, but I've also trained myself. And this has taken a while. And now I may get emotionally heightened, but I also can sit here and go, oh, that's interesting. I'm like really feeling a lot of emotion. What's happening? What's going on here? It was not that way at first. So just fair warning, it does take a minute to learn that. But if at another time, if you're not there yet, right? Like you're not there where you can just introspective in the middle of this heightened state of emotion, that's okay. When you get a free time and you really notice, you're like, oh, I really reacted to that situation. Take a minute and really notice what about that you liked and what about you didn't like. What about that situation that was triggering, that was affecting you, right? Did you not feel respected? Did you not feel supported? Did you not feel, were you bored? Were you, did you feel stressed? Did you feel chaos? Did you feel pain? Did you, what was it that as soon as stuff happened, like what was that? And then you can start, again, it takes time, but then you can start picking apart what is going on in your head, because then you can kind of say, well, this happened and therefore I automatically went to this response. That's the concept. That's the idea. This happened, then I automatically went to this certain response. Why do I believe that? Why do I believe that has to happen? Same with now in the social contract, right? Now you're surrounded by people, and maybe you're in a situation where, we're heading with family, and maybe you get to a situation where you're like, I don't really enjoy being with my family. I should enjoy it. And everybody talks about family time and everybody talks about how amazing this is, but I don't really enjoy it. Why can I not enjoy it? And it's like, oh, well, maybe this one person, right? You're like, oh, so-and-so always has to comment about whatever. They always have to say something, and it makes it miserable. They're always doing this. I always have to allow this person to behave this way. And the reality is that is just a contract that you have created in your head, or other people have created, and you've just subscribed to it. So now we start looking at these patterns, we start looking at these contracts, and now here comes the fun and the really interesting part, and that is disrupting them. Disrupting them is insane sometimes. Because here's what happens when you're going to disrupt any contract, any agreement that everybody else thinks you should have. It's chaos. And people look at you and go, what are you doing? And if it's a contract in yourself, your brain is going to be going, what are you doing? What is happening right now? Whoa, what is going on? And everybody's going to look at you like you're the problem. Why do you have to cause problems? Why can't you just go along with it? It's not that big of a deal. You're being so dramatic. You're doing this. And all you're doing is going, I don't really want to shut my mouth anymore. I don't know. This person doesn't just get to say anything they want to say. You're going to say stupid things. I get to say stupid things. And maybe that stupid thing is, hey, why don't you shut your trap? That's an idea. And now it's going through and disrupting as many of these social contracts and these contracts that you have within yourself, and going, I don't agree with that. I don't subscribe to that. The interesting thing is how much chaos this really does cause. And it can be uncomfortable, but at the same time, it's taking contracts and taking patterns that aren't helping you, that don't serve you. If you don't enjoy being with your family because certain people make that chaotic or stressful or anxiety or whatever, right? And they don't need to be saying those things. Why do they get to say it and you don't get to stop it? Why are we just all agreeing that this is what gets to be said and happen? Right? Like it makes no sense, because everybody's just subscribed to this idea that this is the way it is. And if you don't like it, change it. change whatever part of it that you want. And it's going to be messy. It's not going to make any sense. And everybody's going to be like, why are you causing drama? And why do you have to do this? And why can't you just let so-and-so do whatever they want? And you're like, no, I'm not going to do this anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. Now, I don't know about you, but sometimes I am a person who really likes to stop and think about things. So when I get into a situation and I notice that there is contracts and there are patterns happening, I am a person, I don't necessarily need to say anything. I just stop and observe. If I notice emotion coming out, I just sit back and I go, oh, this is really fascinating. And I really look at exactly the way it is, exactly what's happening. And then I kind of take into account of like, okay, this person said that. I would normally have to respond this way. And I don't want to do that anymore. I don't. So now I know I don't want to do that. But how do I want to respond? Right? Like now it's this figuring out of like, I don't want this, but what do I want? And sometimes you don't know at the time. And that's okay. You only know what you don't want. And you're going, I don't want this anymore. I don't want to respond anymore like this. I don't want this outcome anymore. I'm not enjoying this situation. And I've been doing this situation over and over and over again for years and decades. And I don't want to do it anymore. And everybody's going, well, what are we doing? And you're like, I don't know. I don't know what we're doing. But we're not doing that. I'm not going to respond that way. And I'm done playing into this, whatever it is, right? Whatever it is. It's so, and a lot of times when you start to look at it, you're like, this is so weird. Why are we all just accepting this as like a thing? Have you guys ever been to like somebody else's home that, right, maybe it's like a friend, and you go and you see them with their family, and that person, not that they become a completely new person, but their family starts doing stuff, and you're looking around going, everybody is acting like this is normal. Like, what is happening? Right? Like, so one of the things for me is I did not grow up in a yeller's house. Like, we did not yell out of anger. It was chaotic as far as like, I mean, there were 7 of us and there was a lot going on. So it was chaotic and sometimes, I wouldn't say loud, but it was like there was a lot going on. And it's not like dinner times were just like quiet and hush. And we were all like, oh, it wasn't quiet. But one of the things I will have to say is my parents never yelled out of anger. If we were in trouble, they would pull us aside, quietly talk to us. I mean, if they were livid, very rarely. I never knew it because they were just like, this is unacceptable. We are not doing this. So I would have to say this is one of the things I genuinely cherish that I was taught. We did not live in a yelling household. And the interesting thing is I would go to some friends' homes or I would go to other people's homes, acquaintances, and even to this day, I go to other people's homes and they're yellers. It is so jarring. It is so out of the norm for me that like I'm absolutely blown. Even now, I'm not young, but it blows me away when I see people yelling out of anger. And I don't mean like you go to a home and there's a lot happening and it's loud. I don't need it quiet. It's not that. I mean yelling because you can't control your temper, yelling. And not only yelling because you can't control your temper, yelling when there's a complete stranger in the home. Like there is somebody that is not a part of that family and they're just yelling, or somebody who yells in the grocery store, or somebody who yells at a store and they're just like yelling. It blows my mind. Why? Because it's not a part of my habits or my contracts. Like that's so unacceptable. Control your emotions. You're not 3. Control it. You can do it. Toddlers, that's acceptable. I've had children, that's acceptable. Grown adults, 100% not acceptable. Absolutely not. And I will never, there's very, very few, I can't even think of it. Maybe like one. I don't know. Honestly, cannot think of a reason why a full functioning grown adult should ever be yelling at the top of their lungs out of anger. I don't get it. And I don't think I'll ever get it. It's just a lack of control. The reality, though, is that is something that person never learned. And I get that. And I'm empathetic towards it. I do get it. If that's a struggle for you and that's, serious rage, I get it. I do. I fully get it. That if that's what you need to work on. But it's also a contract that's okay to you. And it's things like that. It's looking inside that, like, just because you've done them for years and years and years does not make it okay. Does not make it good for you. Now, if you're a person that yells and I'm sitting here saying that's unacceptable, who am I? Who am I to tell you? The point is it really bringing you anything to your life? Is it really adding? Because you're in the middle of a store or you're on road rage or whatever it is and you're just having this full-blown temper tantrum. Does it really add to your life? Does it really benefit your life? Other than you have this massive explosion of emotion as you vomit energy on everybody around you. Is that benefiting your life? And that's the thing that we all need to look at. We all have something. We all have certain things that we're doing that we think are so normal, that we think this is how we do it. This is how everybody's done it. So of course, this is how we do it. It's totally acceptable. My grandma threw a hissy fit in the grocery store. And my mother did. And now I get to. Just start looking at those patterns that you're like, this, maybe it was acceptable. And maybe it's been accepted in my entire family. But this is not helping me. This is not who I want to be. And this is not how I want to be. I want to be the person who can calmly express their emotions without vomiting just everywhere, right? All right. So here are the ways that I personally get past these. And I get past them very, very quickly. So the first one I would have to say is I love meditating and like there's also breath work, but just starting with meditation definitely can help you to not clear your mind. That's not what you're doing. You're not trying to clear your mind, but it can help you to start training your brain to focus. Okay? So this is not where we're just going to clear our minds and we're going to feel better. If you struggle really controlling your mind, start meditating and like 5 minutes a day. I don't care how long you do it. Just start, because this is going to start training your brain, because everything about mindset and patterns and habits and healthy lifestyle, it's all about training your brain. Everything is. If you want something better, you have to train your brain to get that better thing. It's as simple as that. The only reason you don't have the thing that you want, the healthy relationship that you want, the successful business, the healthy body, is because you haven't trained your brain to get your body to do that. To get your mind trained to be the successful person. To get your mind trained to have a healthy relationship. Right now, unhealthy relationships are what feel comfortable to you. So that's what you're going towards. It's not luck. It's not luck. It's that some people learned these from their parents. Some people did. For as crazy and chaotic as my lifestyle was growing up, my parents didn't yell. So I learned that one thing. That's one thing I learned. So in my relationship, I didn't have to I didn't have to find somebody who didn't yell. Like when I found them, or when I would date people and they were like emotionally, you could tell they were starting to get like really upset. I'd be like, whew, nope, this is not okay for me. This is hard pass. And so when I found somebody who could remain calm, who could have a conversation, that wasn't luck. It was because that was what was familiar. Because that's what I wanted. That's what I knew. I didn't want somebody who just exploded all over the place. I wanted somebody who could rationally sit down and tell me, have a conversation and say, this is not okay. Let's talk about this. Let's fix this in our relationship. Great. Oh, there were other things, right? just because we had one thing that like was semi good, there were other problems. But at least you get my point of whether it was comfortable or not comfortable. I was not comfortable with yelling. Therefore, I did not find somebody who yelled. It just didn't make sense. Why are you yelling? What are you screaming about? Right? That didn't make sense in my head. Right now, if you are living a life, if you have an unhealthy body, if you have an unhealthy relationship, if you have your business isn't going anywhere, you're not making the money that you want, it's because you haven't elevated yourself. You haven't become that person yet. And the whole game is, who do you have to become to get the thing that you want? You want this over here. Great. Who do you have to become to be that person? And you look at other people, and most of the time, we look at other people who have that thing, and instead of changing the contracts and going, oh, okay, that person has this, and this is what they're doing, and this is what's happening, and this is how they're reacting, and that person says this. Oh, they find somebody who could communicate. Oh, and they're doing this, and they're doing that. Awesome. No, we rarely do that. We look at that person and go, well, why do they get that? Oh, they must have the right genetics. Oh, they must have a rich parent. Oh, they're a trust fund baby. Oh, they just have good genes. Oh, they're just lucky. Instead of figuring out the skill. And if you can break the contract that you have, you'll learn the skill. That's the only thing stopping you from learning the skill is the mindset and the contract that you have going on in your head. That's it. That's it. There's nothing else stopping you. Do you know most people who want to do something could do it? You do it like, I think it's 18 minutes a day. If you do something for 18 minutes a day for 365 days, you're in like the top 5% of that thing. Okay. So like, I want to learn to play the piano. If I sat down for 18 minutes a day for 365 days, by the end of that year, I would be in the top 5% of piano players, right? Why don't people just do it? It's as simple as that. You want to learn a language? Learn the language. You want to have a better body? Work out. You want to have a healthier digestion? Work on your gut health. You want to have better sugar levels? Figure out your sugar, insulin, all this stuff, right? The glucose and the whole thing. Do ketos, all this stuff, right? Why don't we do it? If it's a skill, it's just a skill. You're at point A, you're trying to get to point B, and all you got to do is certain steps, and that's it. Why don't we do it? Because it's our mindset. It's the contracts. We get 5 minutes into it, a week into it, a month into it, and we go, I'm not getting anywhere. I'll never learn to play the piano. What's the point? When logically, scientifically, they've already proven for 365 days, that's all I got to do it for. And you'll be in the top 5%. And what do we think? This is taking too slow. I don't really care to. They've already proven meditation works. How many of us meditate? They've already proven hypnotherapy and energy healing and all this stuff. And EDMR works. And what do? We go to a pill. We want somebody else to fix it. It's not me, it's them. I'm not the problem, they're the problem. We want a better relationship, but it's easier to blame our partners than it is to go, what's my part in this? what do I do? Am I picking the wrong people? Maybe I'm picking the wrong people. Maybe I'm picking people who are really horrible people. Is it your fault they're horrible? No, but stop picking them. You have a part in everything that you do. And it's super easy. We've all done this, where we just want to blame somebody else, or we want to take the pill, or we want the quick way. We want the quick way to do it. I don't want to spend 365 days just doing something for 18 minutes. That sounds exhausting. That sounds horrible. Ugh, right? All right. The very last thing is, I've talked about this, rewriting your mindset, rewriting these social contracts. There's definitely, I've touched on a little bit, but like definitely energy work, and just starting to be self-aware, just starting these, taking like 5 minutes to look over your day and go, what worked and what didn't work? Like, what interactions did I like? What interactions did I not like? Like, what was my part in those? When did I get emotional? Like, taking that time. Some people love to journal it. That really helps them. Other people, they really love to talk it out through therapy. But you got to find what's going to get you to really start thinking these things. That's kind of the first step, right? Being self-aware. And then you got to find what's going to help you to retrain your brain. Now, one of the things that you can definitely start with, if you go to episode, I believe it's 6, go to episode 6. I have a self-love hypnosis. That is a great place to start retraining your brain. Just go to episode 6, try it out. It'll start that process to start retraining your brain. And it's totally free. It's on this podcast. There's a few others if you want to go take a look at them. There's not a ton. I think there's like 3 or 4. Some say meditation, some say hypnosis, but they're all different ones, and you can try them out. And this starts to retrain those patterns and retrain those contracts. Like, just loving yourself. We have so many contracts around loving ourselves, about who we are, about, I'm ridiculous, or I do stupid things, or nobody else is saying that to you. Well, maybe they are, but the reality is, why are you listening to it? Why are you agreeing with it? So just start. I really, really would recommend starting with self-love. Can't go wrong there. Learning to love yourself, learning to have a relationship with yourself, liking you. You cannot go wrong with this. This is like the best place to start. And then, again, if you found value in this, please share this. Please share this with other people, or go to episode 6 and just share it with people and be like, here, you need a little self-love. Figure out, here you go. We're going to do this together. Find a friend, do it together. And then if you want to journal your experiences, or talk with your therapist or with your friend, these are all great ways to really start training your brain to not only notice those contracts, to notice those patterns, but then to start switching them. Because just knowing about them, that is the first step. You have to be aware of them. That 100%, that's the first step. But if you just know about them, what does that do? You're like, okay, I know about this. I have this weird belief. Now you got to go to work. Get rid of them. Get past it. Figure out the best way for you to let it go, to release it, and to just get it out of your life. All right. I love you guys. Absolutely. Keep going. You guys are doing amazing. I know you are. Because if you keep listening to this, and that means you're listening to other stuff. That means you're reading. That means you want a better life. And just doing that, that's enough. So please tell yourself that. Please tell yourself that you're doing enough, that you're doing the best, not just the best that you can, but the best that you're doing is enough. All right. I love you guys, and I really hope you have an amazing week. And until next time, we'll see you then.